Peace everyone, Unmask here, and welcome back to the colored pencil tutorial. Hope everyone is having a lovely day. I might actually finish this project today. It just depends on how smoothly everything from here on out goes. So I am going to start with the headlights. I'm going to start with the color black actually in the headlights and go from there. Hey there, Cece, Greg, Barbara, Diane, Claire, Dottie. Good to see everyone. So I'm going to jump over here to this headlight and I'm just going to focus on the black shapes, the black and very dark gray shapes, rather. And that will be the first step. Just getting those dark shapes put in. So for the next colored pencil project, the plan is to do a portrait. I still need to find the reference photo that I'm going to use, but that is the plan. Doing a portrait of an older person, just for the experience. Dealing with skin tone that has texture, such as wrinkles, sort of the idea behind that, as requested. Another little spot right up here. Just kind of ignoring everything that isn't really dark or black for now. Just get these shapes put in. And there's like this cross part of the, like the loop, I don't know, gap in the headlight right here. This part comes up around the headlight and it sort of tapers off. Some of the details are just impossibly small. You can't replicate them. Well, I can't replicate them drawing at this size, so you just sort of have to make the best estimation of where to stop trying to get that microscopic detail. You can only go so small with a colored pencil, so no need to get frustrated with the tiny details that you can't get. Alright, now I'm going to fill this shape here in. I'll fill that in more in a bit, but what I want to do, while my black pencil is still sharp, or actually there's a little part right here that I needed to get, so let me do that. This outer edge, almost missed that. I was thinking about the headlight and not thinking about the rest of the car. This kind of goes up and around the outer part of the headlight. Excited about the portrait? Yeah, it's going to be fun. All right, while my pencil was still sharp, I'm going to jump over to the other headlight, do the same thing. The black spots on this headlight are a little less little smaller. Got this first outer edge here. Always try to maximize the fact that your pencil is sharp by doing the small details the best you can. Let's see. We have this triangle here. Kind of comes up. And let's see here. This little gap right here. And then another one here. Small little shapes. There we go. And there is a little dark spot in the glass of the headlight, but I'm going to avoid that for now. Instead, I'm going to do this little outer edge. I want to do the glass of the headlight all at once because that's sort of a process. We did headlights in the last project that were pretty tricky, but everybody that did that project managed to get through that pretty well. And the procedure is going to be the same here. Hello, Allie and John. Good to see you. All right, I'll finish up this outline here of this part of the headlight. And I'm going to stop the black right here where there's this little reflective swirl. Just like that. And then here it just wraps up around kind of that. And so I will fill this shape in. The headlights are like the eyes of the car, so it will once we get these filled in, the car is going to look really, really complete. I don't know if I want I don't want to rush anything. So no guarantee that I will finish today's stream or have finished this project on today's stream, and I may just do a short stream tomorrow, because if I finish the project today, then I will not stream tomorrow, and that will give me some time to find the reference photo and create the line art for the next project. All right, now I'm going to do another layer over here. Yes, well, no, I won't be doing Evolve tomorrow. Evolve is on Friday. So I'll be painting on Friday evening my time. So a little bit different time than last week for Friday stream, but I'll schedule that out after I'm done with the art club streams. So you'll see the notification for that stream probably Thursday evening. Okay, let's go ahead and change colors now. I'm going to switch to the 1065 color. And it's the same process as with the black, except different shapes. Let's start up here. Triangle here. And then another one. A lot of small pure white highlights that make its way into these really small shapes. So you have to try your best to avoid those for obvious reasons. Do I have any experience with dagger brushes? I do not. In all of the years that I've been painting, I use a filbert and a round. And with oil paint, I will use a fan brush also. Those are the three brushes that I use, and I have yet to discover any necessity to have any other brushes, to be honest with you. But I've always been very frugal. I don't like to spend money, and so um, I always bought really cheap brushes, and I always bought very few brushes, and I tend to just use those three types of brushes. Can't imagine a dagger brush is too different than a filbert, but with sharper corners, because the filbert is a bit softer. All right, that's about it for the outer part. There's a little bit right here that I need to do, but yeah, that looks like everything. So just go over that time. And then I'll jump over here, do the same thing. Yeah, sketch, I know exactly what you mean. It's always at the end. Like sometimes like there's certain parts in colored pencil work that uh, sort of make you just want to rush. The last part of the project is notorious for making you want to rush. The other parts, like in between, are the simple parts. The really easy sections of a colored pencil project are the ones that you end up making the mistakes. That's when, like when we were filling in the car, if you remember when we were filling in the base layer for the car, there's there's nothing hard about that. Like a 4-year old could do that effectively. And because it's so easy, there's a tendency to try to rush and force the pencil to color it faster. And the problem with that is faster usually implies more pressure on the pencil. And you have to refrain from doing that, which can be very hard to do because we spent hours just using one single color to fill the paper in. And if you try to cut that time down by, you know, grinding the pencil into the paper real heavily, that affects the later layers that you are able to apply. Because if you do it lightly and you just gradually let the paper be filled up, the paper still has texture and you can apply colors on top. And it makes a big difference. So yeah, you gotta try to refrain from letting yourself rush. It's one of the number one reasons people mess up with colored pencils is they get into a comfort zone where they think that they can save a little bit of time and then it comes back to bite them. You Colored pencils are not a friendly medium in my opinion. They sort of make you suffer from the beginning to the end. There's no shortcuts really. You could somewhat argue that being able to blend them with solvent is a little bit of a shortcut, but even that barely saves any time. Because the other thing with colored pencils is that you don't really learn it until later when you're new to colored pencils how important a sharp pencil really is to the quality of your work. Because when it comes to the really small stuff, really small pinholes that you get in your colored pencil drawing, they can't be filled in with anything other than a very sharp pencil and sort of poking at the dots. And Prismacolor actually aren't really good at doing it, period. Prismacolors, no matter how much you sharpen them, they still struggle with those little pinholes. And I'd say that's um, probably one of the more obvious like drawbacks to Prismacolor is that no matter how hard you try, you'll never really get smoother than what you see right here on this paint. And you can still see a bit of the grain. Uh, Prismacolor does fall a little short in that regard in comparison to Polychromos. Polychromos, you can fill the paper in masterfully with Polychromos. I'd say if you want to do photorealism, like real photorealism, not the stuff people try to call photorealism, um, then Prismacolor is not the pencil to use to do that. It really isn't. It's a great realism pencil, and you can, if you work really large, you can get pretty photorealistic by working larger, much larger. But if you want to do a drawing like this and you want it to be photorealism, then you can't even consider Prismacolor because it's just not possible with this pencil. My apologies if I happen to miss anybody's question. Let me go back through. Oh, hey there, Shauna. Good to see you again. Yeah, objects like this, it doesn't necessarily have to be a car, but objects that have a really wide range of contrast and gradients and smooth surfaces. Uh, Still life in general is a really good subject matter genre to practice your values. Because you can never be too good at gradients and values with colored pencil. Gradients are extremely difficult in any medium. In any traditional medium, gradients are the one skill that you need to just spend all the time in the world mastering. Gradients are pretty much the foundation of every object in existence that you want to try to create on a two-dimensional surface. So if you struggle with gradients, I would highly urge you to take some time aside and just practice picking two random colors and fleshing out a smooth gradient from one to the other. All right, I'm going to switch up my colors here. I'm going to grab the 1063. It's a little bit of a lighter gray in this area right here. Oh, hey there, Rain. Oksana, good to see you as well. Thank you very much. Oh, I bet it looks fantastic, Cherry. I can't wait to see it. Same to you, Diane. What do I think of Derwent? I don't think anything of them. I've never used them. Uh, if light fastness concerns you, skip Derwent. Just go to Luminance. Or you can just remove the what 15 pencils from the Polychromos set or the Prismacolor set, and then even if you use a light fast pencil, you still need to you'll still need to protect it with a fixative, a UV protective fixative, and keep it out of sunlight. But I think there's 4 or 5 non-light lower light fastness pencils in the Luminance set, and 10 in the Polychromos set, like 15 to 20 in the Prismacolor set. Oh, you know what? I need to switch back to the 1065. Forgot about the little details in this this part of the metal. And then you have this separation. It's really tough to get those pure white highlights protected and in the right spot. And then there's 2 of them. Makes it even harder. Yeah, Prismacolor gets a bad rap for their light fastness, but the reality is a majority of the Prismacolor pencils are in fact light fast. Like the other thing is that the light fastness is not uniform across, it is not measured uniformly across all colored pencils. They have their own different grading system, so that it makes it that much harder to accurately um, compare the pencils. I know there's I've come across it some time ago online. I'm talking like 5 years ago or more, of like a chart that sort of broke down the light fastness comparison between the sets of pencils. And I know that Lisa from Lockery Fine Art, it's an old video, it's probably like 10 years old. Um, that she did a comparison, and she goes, if I remember correctly, she went through all of the pencils, Prismacolor, Polychromos, Luminance, and talked about which pencils to keep, which ones not to keep in each set. Because I know that um, when she buys her sets of pencils, she just throws the ones that she's not going to use away. She's a big stickler for light fastness. Um, I am not, because my artwork only needs to last until I die. I don't really care what's going to happen after that, because I highly doubt I highly doubt it's going to be worth anything. So I'm not I'm not banking on that. My potential future kids will have to rely on something else to make their living, not the artwork of their dead father. as as morbid as that is, but all right, time for some solvent. John, fan brushes and oil paint can be used for a number of things. They're really great to use dry, or very light blending. But they're also really good for things like foliage and bushes, to get like unique textures, because if you load a fan brush up with paint, the bristles stick together and give you sort of a unique texture that other brushes don't give you. So grass could be something nice. I'm pretty sure I'm remembering correctly, but Bob Ross used fan brushes for his clouds, both application and blending. And then he also used a fan brush to create the tree trunks in his evergreen trees. So there's a number of different applications, not just blending. Though blending is a very good one if you get a soft fan brush, because you can have stiff ones too. I feel like it's getting darker in my room. I was like looking down and it just felt like it got really dark. Hopefully the light in the video didn't change. Dottie, the answer to your question about the fixative, it's actually used for both if it's designed for both. So um, there's fixatives for colored pencils that don't advertise UV protectant, and then there are. And I recommend getting ones that are UV protective, because that will just help the light fastness even more, even among the pencils that are graded light fast. The reality is you shouldn't ever rely on the pencils themselves to be light fast. you should always take the necessary precautions to protect your artwork outside of what the light fastness is of the medium. Because you can take, you could probably find a video on YouTube of somebody testing it, testing the light fastness. But if you wanted to do a test yourself, take like the lowest light fast pencil in your collection, which is probably something close to this orange in the Prismacolor. Spray half of it with a UV protectant fixative, and then set it out in the sunlight for a week. If you still get sunlight, I don't remember what the sun looks like. Um, and do a before and after comparison, you know. You shouldn't be setting your artwork out in the sunlight anyway. So, um, my opinion has always been that people care way too much about light fastness with colored pencils in the first place because one, you should be using a UV protective fixative in the first place. That's something that should be very obvious to people that care about light fastness. And that's where 90% of your light fastness is gonna come from in the first place. Or let's say 80% of your light fastness is gonna come from the fixative that you use, regardless of the light fastness from the pencil. And then the other 20% is going to be the fact that you aren't hanging your artwork outdoors in direct sunlight. If you wanted to do another test, take your least light fast pencil, find a place you don't really care it's hanging up inside your house, and hang it up for 6 months, where one side is sprayed with UV protective fixative and the other side isn't, and just let it sit there, hang on the wall in, you know, whatever room you don't really care about. And see what the difference is. Yeah, there's also UV protective glass when framing. You're, I'm glad you brought that up, Yulia. I was thinking that, but so you can use the fixative, the UV fixative, and then the UV glass, and no pencil's gonna fade at that point. It's gonna take like 500 years. Sorry, I'm just going through chat right now. I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss it. Oh, that's cool, Shauna. This piece here is just gonna go in my crowded drawer of drawings. It all of my artwork just lives under my bed, literally in a drawer under my bed. The pencils are tested light fastness and museum conditions. Hmm, I don't know if I believe that. I don't think that's the case. So the pencils being UV protective sprayed with UV protective glass, and then also in a museum setting, and that's how they tested it. I just don't see that being the case. Do I sell the art that I do? I don't sell my art, not because I don't want to, just because I just don't want to actually do it. You know what I mean? I don't have to like pack it and ship it and all that stuff. By the way, I'm letting this dry. It's very important when you use solvent. Always make sure you give adequate time for your paper to dry. So I'm not just sitting here doing nothing. I'm waiting for it to dry. Should be good. Let's see. I'm gonna grab the 1067. Do some work on this part. This part has some gradients in it and some color changes. You have a picture that's done in Crayola crayons. 8 years, huh? 8 years haven't faded? I can believe that. I can believe that. I have a lot of artwork that hangs in my family's house. Like my brother and my sister, they have a lot of my artwork. And some of it colored pencil work that I never even sprayed with fixative, and it just hangs on the wall. It has been about 5 years, or I know it's been, yeah, about 5 years. It was like 2015, 6 years or so, 5 or 6 years that the artwork has been hanging there and no change. Done with Prismacolor pencils. I'm using white here, by the way. Need to add some of these little highlights in this part. Now I realize that is a anecdotal perspective on the fading of the pencils, but it just I've always felt like the light fastness was just nothing to concern yourself with. But maybe that's just because I don't personally care. One of the things that I always said as I was faced with the question of light fastness, I always said that if by any chance, and I doubt there is any, that for whatever reason my artwork was held to a different standard in 100 years, then I will let the conservators care. Because right now I don't. Regarding the light fastness, I just can't bring myself to be concerned with it. I'm not saying that it's bad to or anything like that. Don't mean to imply. It's just that if I were to care, I would be pretending, and I can't pretend. That's one thing you'll never get with me. You'll never get me pretending about anything. You're gonna know exactly what I think. Okie dokie. Now, let's move on to the headlights. And I'm going to start this party off with... do I want to start? Yeah, I'm with the 1070. I'm going to keep it really, really light. Most of the shapes are already put in, but I just want to quickly sketch in where the pure white highlights are. Do I have a lot of my art hanging on the walls? Yeah, I have quite a bit. Um, older stuff, like years old now that I think about it. I could probably just, I mean, I also have color charts. I have color charts that have been on my wall for 4 or 5 years now. They're not sprayed with any fixative, and I have side by side comparison chart of polychromos, luminance, and Prismacolor. If you think about it, I sort of have a long-term test on my wall beside me. I could just look at that. I tell you, I can tell you right now. Um, this color right here, not even remotely faded. This color, this orange, this bright orange that I used in the indicator lights, that is the least light fastness graded pencil in the Prismacolor set. I've had it hanging on my wall for at least 5 years, at least 5 years, um, and it's not even faded a tiny bit. It's still just as vibrantly neon orange as the day I put it on. I'd have to go through the pencils like one by one to really determine if any of them have faded at all, but I can tell you that that one hasn't. That's for sure. All right, so for that headlight, I just used this one color. All the extra bright areas I left blank. Now I'm going to, yeah, let's go ahead with the 1065. And now I'm just going to take some of the dark shapes and darken those shapes. And I'm not even going to try to be really exact about it. Just going to look for the big shapes and sort of fill them in a little bit. Keep it simple. It's the way I like it. What's my favorite theme to draw? Uh, People, I guess. If is that a theme? People are my favorite. Faces and figures. That's what I would do all day, every day if I felt like I could, and people would still sign up to my website. My retirement from art is just me retiring from uh, doing anything other than what I exactly want to do. But the truth is, it doesn't mean that I would only do faces and figures, because I like to do these cars too. I like to do everything when it comes to art. There's nothing off limits. But if I was forced to pick one and I could only do that one, then that's what it would be. Always. It's just the most challenging to me. Good morning, Sneaks. If I could part with my art under my bed, it would make a fabulous gift. Well, I give my family art. I'm using this is black. I'm using black. Get the dark parts. For my sister's birthday this year, I gave her the still life project that I live streamed. You go back a little bit on my channel, you'll see that still life time lapse. I gave her that for her birthday, and she loved it. My sister Lisa, she and this is a different Lisa. Lisa Claw from Lockery Fine Art is not my sister. She just happens as the same name as my sister. Um, but my sister Lisa, she has pretty much amassed the largest collection of my still life art. She has, she actually has my first, I guess it's my second oil painting technically. I don't even know where my first oil painting is. But my second oil painting was a still life of a pear and a tomato. And that has been hanging in her kitchen for about 10 years. Yeah, about 10 years that's been hanging in her kitchen. Oh, you see what that value does to the headlight? Now it looks good. I'm gonna jump back to the 1063, and now I'm gonna do some of the shapes in the gray stuff. It's not all pure white here, just a little bit pure white. This bottom part kind of pure white. The rest is grayish. Something like that. What are my recommendations for things to start with if you're learning to draw? If you're learning to draw, like not color with colored pencils, but draw. Um, so drawing is something that I don't teach on a regular basis because I don't want to teach how to draw on a regular basis. I want to color, I want to play with color, so I want to teach people how to color and stuff. But I get the drawing question a lot. My first recommendation, if you struggle with drawing, which if you're in my chat right now, I can't imagine that you don't. Everybody struggles with drawing. I struggle with drawing, for crying out loud. Drawing is hard. Um, but the first thing, if you want to see like immediate improvement, like I'm talking from right now to the very next moment, that fast of immediate improvement, learn the grid method. Learn the grid method. Draw over and over and over again using the grid method. The reason you improve with drawing when you use the grid method is because that you're forcing your eyes and your hand to communicate with measurements, with precise measurements. You have a square, you see a line that goes through that square or a shape that exists in that square, you create that shape. And as you continue to get better at the grid method, the shapes that you're able to create in larger squares gets easier. Well, unless your canvas is a circle, that is going to begin translating into the squares that you draw on all the time. All the paper that you're drawing on is, some form of rectangle. So you start to build like sort of this intuitive spatial awareness between points. And when you get proficient with the grid method, starting out, your squares might be like that small, teeny tiny little squares, because you're terrible at drawing, and you need the really small squares in order to get the detail accurately. Well, do that 10 times, and then all of a sudden you're going to be a little bit more confident, and you're going to be like, well, I don't need squares that small. I can use a little bit larger squares. And so you use larger squares, and then you get proficient in filling in the information with slightly larger squares. And then before you know it, you only need a few squares. And then you don't need a square. You just need your eyes and your hand. So that's why I always recommend it. Learn the grid method. I have a short like 2 or 3 part lesson on my website for the grid method. I take you through step by step how to start the grid method, how to advanced in the grid method, and then how to get rid of the grid method. So go through that whole process. Forget what I'm doing. Oh, the headlight. I'm going to just blend out this right headlight, get it nice and smooth. Look pretty good. I know that the grid method is not the most fun way to draw. I realize that. It's very constrictive, and it's very it's not really, what's the word I'm looking for? Creative. It's not creative at all. But the skills that you learn by doing it over and over and over again directly translate into that hand-eye coordination. With drawing, it's not necessarily eye-hand coordination. It's more brain, hand, eye coordination. Like it's three things, not just two. You can be really good at drawing but not be able to throw a baseball. That type of hand-eye coordination is a little bit different. When it comes to seeing something, seeing something and then your brain being able to replicate the motion necessary to replicate what you're seeing, it's a little bit more involved than throwing a baseball. Give anybody a week, they can throw a baseball. Give anybody a pencil, they're not going to be drawing in a week. And it's funny because we spend our whole life, well, not so much anymore. Everybody uses cell phones, but anybody over the age of 30 has basically spent their whole life writing things down, taking notes, writing things in school and stuff like that. Um, and yet incapable of drawing at the same time. You spend your whole life sort of mastering the fine motor skills of your hand, and yet you can't draw. And it's because the underlying technique required to draw well is not inherent to just moving your hand. Although, a good example, I don't know if some of you may recall, like when you were learning to write letters for the first time, if you can go back that far. I can go back that far, but I don't know how many people can. Um, Remember how you used to write? It would be a solid line, a dotted line, a solid line, and you'd have to write the letters and match the shapes up with the level of the line. Well, that practice over years, can you write on a blank piece of paper and write in a straight line? Most people can do a relatively good job, and it's because of that boring, that repetitive, unimaginative, constrictive process of writing in those spaces that allowed you to do it freehand later. And drawing is the same way. Yeah, that's also a big process, long process, Diane, is identifying things in reference photos. It's developing the eyes of an artist takes time. It's good to hear that those eyes are developing though. Was there ever a drawing painting that I did in the past that got really stuck on? Let me think about that a minute. And in the meantime, I'm going to grab my 1070 and fill in the shapes while that one dries. Again, I'm going to focus just on these sort of pure white shapes and outline them. Not just doing the pure whites, I'm also doing the just the light shapes. Let's see, painting, drawing. I don't want to say no to that question. Um, but I'm trying to think of one. Because I'm really trying to find a way to say yes to that question. Uh, Stuck on something. What did I get stuck on? What would I have gotten stuck on? I'm doing everything. I'm thinking of like every drawing, painting I did in my entire life. Currently, I'm in eighth grade. I'm just trying to see if I was. My drawings and my artwork has always been like my journal. So I sort of have a pretty decent memory of all of the work that I've ever done. And I'm trying to think of one particular project that I did um, that I got stuck on. The only thing the only thing I can think of is early ninth grade. Um, Early ninth grade, I I was full blown wanting to draw people, switching colors. I'm gonna do 10-6-7. Actually, not 10-6-7. I want 10-6-5. Early ninth grade, I really wanted to draw people, and I met this new friend, Nick, and I I looked at him like he was already pro. He was a year ahead of me, so he would have been 10th grade at the time. And he had a very unique comic book style to his work. In particular, like he had an identifiable nose structure that he did on all his characters, male or female, with small, subtle variations that allowed it to be distinct to the character, but not so distinct that you couldn't tell or that it looked like it was drawn by somebody else. Because the thing is, his characters, he sort of suffered from oh, what's that term that illustrators use where all their characters look the same? Same face syndrome. Yes, same face syndrome. And so they were subtle enough to be somewhat distinct, but he did suffer a little bit from same face syndrome. Even between the males and females in his little comic book thing that he would write. But he was way beyond what I could do at the time. And I remember sitting down at lunch with him one day and I was like, you gotta show me how to draw faces because my females I never really cared about my guys looking handsome when I draw them. So if they look busted, I couldn't care less. But when I would draw female faces, I'd be like, you gotta help me out here. I can't show these to people. I'm gonna have nightmares. And so he showed me his noses and how he would structure them on the face. And it's funny because I have the sketchbook that I was working in at the time throughout the year of ninth grade because it really only lasted through ninth grade that I did what I did. But essentially, every single character became a same face because I drew the same nose on every character. And I just did the same structure every single time. And I sort of emulated his work the best that I could. I'm switching to the black pencil now. I'm going to do the dark shapes. And so it's not really answering your question because it wasn't one project. It was like one thing specific, and it was noses and faces on my female characters that I would try to draw. Because in ninth grade, I got really into manga. First manga I ever read was Helsing, and I loved it. Oh my goodness, I loved it. I still love it. Manga is like the greatest thing in the world. Um, and I read every manga that they had in the local public library. They had um, one of the ones that I really loved was um, Initial D. Initial D, one of the, just the greatest mangas ever. The funny thing about Initial D is that the characters in it are so ugly. They're super ugly, but the cars are amazing. In the racing scenes are phenomenal. So much action in the drawing. I'm totally getting off topic here. Um, oh, hey there, Ro. Sorry I didn't see you pop in. Um, I'm from Poland. Well, I'm not originally, but I live in Poland. Have I read Berserk? I have not. I have heard of it, but I've never read it. All right, now that I have the black shapes in, I'm switching back to the 1070. Put some of the gray into these shapes here. Um, I can remember just about everything that I've ever drawn or painted, but I cannot remember every manga that I've read. I sort of got off topic a little bit, talking about my art and sort of things from the past, but people's faces, particularly girl faces, because what else am I going to draw as a ninth grader? Come on now. Learn it. You want to draw people, you're in ninth grade, you're a boy. I can assure you it's not other dudes that you're drawing. Just trying to learn how to draw pretty pretty women. That was basically all of high school for me. And I struggled with the faces until let's say about halfway through my junior year. So it took me about a year and a half before my faces started to get a little less busted. And the reality is that I never practiced. Like that's one of the things you can almost always identify with a self-taught artist is just ask them how they practice, and they'll be like, "What is practice?" Self-taught artists don't know how to practice. That's sort of the reason that it takes so long for a self-taught artist to become proficient in pretty much anything is because they tend to just do what they want because that's what I've always done. That's what a majority of people do when they get into art and drawing and coloring and painting. They just want to skip everything, go straight into doing what they want. And it works. You spend enough years doing it, you're going to get good. But it's the practice that you're forced to do in traditional education systems of art. It's the structure, sort of the step by step that you have to work through. That's the practice, um, to sort of skip that phase later on. Do I ever lose interest in finishing a project? Yes. Oh, that's a tough one. that I I'd be lying if I said anything otherwise. Sometimes 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 projects they don't come together the way that I wanted them to. Not so much anymore because I like to take my time with all of these projects. It was like in the beginning of the year, I think, Diane, if you remember me talking about it in in the tutorials, is I was explaining that I had this fear that if I did not get through these projects fast enough, that you wouldn't be interested in it, and then I would lose members on my website, and or I would, back when I was doing Patreon as well, like I wanted to try to get through the projects as fast as possible, and so during the live streams I would rush to get them done, and there's a huge portion of projects that suffer from being rushed, um, and I'm quite displeased with them. And usually, about halfway through the projects, I would just want to quit because I knew that it was going to turn out less than the quality than I wanted. So it doesn't happen so much anymore, but it certainly has happened. What is the most difficult part of this project? The most difficult part is not rushing. That's the most difficult part of just about anything that you're ever going to do. The moment you lose your patience is the moment that you've messed up. And so that's the most difficult part of anything that anything I will ever do when it comes to painting or drawing, coloring or anything like that. All right, now with the headlights, I'm going to leave the headlights alone for a little bit. I want to jump up to the windshield wipers. I'm going to grab, well, first I'm going to sharpen my pencils. So give me a moment. Yeah, and it's that sentiment, Cherry, Diane, and Claire, that you guys like when I do these longer projects that exemplifies like my number one rule: be patient, take your time, don't rush. Um, and it's sort of, strangely enough, it didn't really occur to me in all that time I was doing those other projects that I was sort of not practicing what I preach by taking my time. It it has to take time. There's just no way around it. So, and that's why I switched it up. And now these projects, they take weeks to finish. Um, you know, hour or two at a time. Is it better to finish a piece, or should start a new one if it does not come out right? You should always finish. You should always finish. Um, the only time you should the only time you should call it quits on a project is if you've made some kind of mistake that makes it impossible to continue. For instance, if I were hypothetically, if I were to like trip and fall and stab a hole through my paper right now with this pencil, that would make it impossible to finish. Or if I spilled orange juice on it, I don't know why I said orange juice, but you know what I mean. Coffee, that's probably something more likely for somebody to be drinking. I don't drink coffee, so I would never have that problem. But um, or if there's some kind of mistake that is not correctable, like whatever it is, it can't be reversed. That's the only time. Uh, oh, right. I'm working on the windshield wipers. I'm going to use the 1070. This windshield wiper is really light. It's like in the. It's not very dark. It has a bright highlight on it. Oh, I almost forgot this part. I almost forgot the air intake right there. That would have been embarrassing. So I'll do the windshield wipers and the air intake. I'm not done with the headlights, by the way. Although they do look pretty good. I'm allowed to say that. The top edge of this windshield wiper is pretty close to pure white, so I'm just going to leave it highlighted like that, by the way. You always wish to know if it's worth doing subscription-based teaching or creating course videos. As for Patreon, I think commitment is huge. That's a good topic for people that want to do what I do. There's no reason that you can't do both, because I do both. I have courses. I haven't made a new one in a while, but I still have them. They still sell on my website, and I sell on average I sell 2 a day of my courses. It has been a constant 2 a day, sometimes more, on average for years. Not for 4 years, but for years. FOR. And the beauty of the courses as opposed to the subscription based is that the courses only need to be made once and they just keep selling. Whereas the subscription base, you have to constantly be producing content. I'm switching to the 1065. But for the live stream teaching that I do, sort of the format, I guess, it's fun. I enjoy doing it. I have a lot of fun hanging out with everybody and chatting. And you guys, I love it when you ask questions. Like today has been almost overwhelming with the questions, in the sense that I can't keep up and stay focused on my drawing here. Doing my best to keep up. It takes practice, actually, to do even as good as I'm doing today. It's quite difficult to look at the paper and remember to look at chat. But yeah, both subscription based and courses are really good. There's no need to have to choose one over the other. Switching colors, I'm going to switch to black. This is the black pencil. Just when you do a subscription based, you just have to know what you're signing up for. It's going to take a while to build like the following that's going to be willing to pay. The thing is, like, the whole entire world has switched to subscription based. Like, anybody notice that? Like, you can't buy anything anymore. You can only pay for access via subscription. Like, you can't buy movies anymore. I mean, you can, but nobody buys movies anymore. They just subscribe to the the hundreds of continuously growing subscription video movie platforms. Like it used to just be Netflix. Now it's every single network that was ever on TV. It's kind of funny. Subscriptions have become such the primary uh, setup for media that people people have stopped subscribing to their regular household television program things and started subscribing to like certain networks. And then now, in the past couple years, there are there's subscription bundles, which is hilarious because people have dropped their TV provider that gives you a library of networks based on a subscription for another network of or another bundle of subscriptions. And it's so funny. It's kind of like this weird evolution. Um, and it's been unique to be a part of that ecosystem. And gosh, it's it just makes me laugh. It just makes me laugh. I don't have any of those media network thingy subscriptions. I've never had Netflix. I've never had Disney Plus or any of the other stuff. I've never had any of it. I've never even had a smartphone. So I can't download apps to do it either. I'm just switching to the 1067 here. Um, but yeah, totally off topic. But anyways, um, to go back to the topic regarding art, um, if you have Patreon, I would highly recommend you, as quickly as possible, find a way to build your own website, sell your own courses, and set up your own subscription website. Don't use the third party websites. First off, they're thieves. They don't provide anything except the platform. Patreon is horrible. They have no service to the content creators. They just have this super mediocre website. Um, and they take your money. People are there to support you. Patreon takes like 10-15% or something like that, which is just ridiculous. They provide no service, and they take money from the people that actually create something. Let's see, switching back to the 1065. Sorry, there was probably some question somewhere along my ramblings. Um, yeah, I still have all those. I still have the Unmasked family portrait from that Inktober a couple years back. All right, grabbing the solvent now. I should have enough pigment on my paper. Get done with this um, interior slash windshield wipers. I gotta remember this is not a highlight. That is the air intake, and I have to do it. Gotta do the air intake. I'm gonna do that next. There. Windshield wipers are done. Let's do this air intake. I'm gonna start with black. There's like this little, like this separation here. I'm gonna try my best to get that separation between the little ribs of this thing. Just gonna try to get it the cleanest that I can. I'm not counting. I'm not trying to get it exactly because there's just no way to fit that much detail in this teeny tiny little part of my drawing. So if I can get pretty close to getting that texture there, that really at this scale it's just texture. It's not even. I got the little ribs. The top part, I'm just going to use the 1065 for the top part. This is actually the same color as the car. So I'm going to leave a little gap for some highlights on the edges. That way it separates from the car a little bit. Leave those pure white highlights on the edges there, but not too big. And then this front one is split in half, and the top side is darker. So I'm going to use the 1067 on this top edge to make it darker. And I'll add a little bit of this also to the top. And I'll smooth it out with the 1070. The bright areas I'll smooth out with the 1070. So something like that. No, there won't be a background to this. Challenge you're having is doing an area that is more faded, softer detail. Yeah, the illusion of out of focus, whether it's, you know, a part of the main subject or just the blurry background or something along those lines, we always have a tendency to put more information in our drawing than what exists. And that's because our brains identify what is there because of context. When you look, say you're looking at a portrait of somebody outside and they're standing in front of like a bush or some kind of foliage tree or something, but it's completely blurry and out of focus. Your brain is still going to say that's a tree, that's a bush, or those are flowers or something like that because of the context of the entirety of the picture. So it makes it really tricky to not do that, not add more information, because in the context of drawing or painting, those types of backgrounds, you tend to leave the main subject out for that time being. That's how I do it. I always do backgrounds first. And without the context of precision and detail in the main subject, the backgrounds always look wrong when that part is out. So yeah, I'm gonna use white to help me get these highlights here a little bit smoother. They're kind of rough looking because of the pencil grain. Can't really blend them out with the solvent because there's nothing on the paper. There we go. One thing that is continuing to bother me, I'm going to use black. My headliner here up at the top is just, it does not want to be smooth. I put so many layers of black on this, and I cannot get that edge to be smooth. It's very frustrating. I'm going to try to smooth it out one more time. I'm going to use solvent as well. My second hand here is to steady my other hand, if you're wondering. Okay. Let me just grab the solvent. Try to make that edge there nice and crisp. I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but there's just tiny little white flecks of the paper still showing through right on the edge. It's just driving me absolutely crazy. Just cannot stare at it any longer. Prismacolor is a bit crumbly, and it's really tricky to get sharp, clean edges with these pencils. Like I said, as much as I love Prismacolor, I will use them, continue to use them for all of the projects for the purpose of being a tutorial. So you don't have to go out and buy the most expensive pencils in the world. The limitations don't come until you improve to a degree that you notice them. So they're not really worth not getting or not using. You're learning colored pencils. Did I upload my recent Thomas Kincaid project? All of the projects are on my website. These live tutorials, they are art club projects that only recently have I started publicly live streaming so that I can sort of get all of your questions and continue to promote without feeling too guilty my art club. And then hopefully you'll like the project so much that you are then enticed to join the art club, because there is a lovely group of people in chat that are art club members. They've been art club members for years, and there's a reason that they've been here for years. Okie dokie, so the headlights, I'm going to use white really quick to lighten some of the highlights on the headlights, smooth some things out a bit. Yeah, I have the live streams public while I'm actually live. As soon as these live streams end, they are no longer public, so you won't be able to go back and watch the old ones or anything like that unless you join the art club. And that's sort of how I do it now. I do it that way because the art club members are so generous. Because if they would have said that they don't want me to do it, then I wouldn't have done it. But I'm glad. I'm glad to do it this way now, because it's really nice to just hang out and chat with like a bunch more people. Um, and I get a lot more questions because most of the time, the art club members that watch the live streams, they're working themselves. They're doing the projects themselves at the same time, or other projects at the same time, and so the number of questions that I get can be rather underwhelming. Alrighty. So the headlights look good. I'm still zoomed in, so let's see, what time is it? Yeah, I can finish this up. I can finish this project up. So let's just go ahead and continue on. Um, and what that means that I'm going to finish this project up just so that everyone's on the same page is that there will not be a live stream tomorrow because I'm going to finish this project right now. So now it's just the small details, sort of the polishing stage. But just in case I finish this project today, I was prepared. I am going to be adding a single toning color. This is 905, this color here. This color is not in the reference photo. This color, I chose this color. I'm not going to tell you why I chose this color. I want somebody in chat to tell me why I chose this color. Okay. Why did I choose this color? And this is going to be the toning color that I use in, well, throughout, everywhere, pretty much. But yeah, somebody can tell me why I chose that color. In the meantime, I'm going to use 1067 to put in a little bit of texture detail in this glass over here. Let's see, I'm going to use, just going to use the white. There's a highlight that comes through this part of the window. So I'm just going to use a little bit of white. Sort of create that little section there. For side windows and back side glass, reflection from the sky. You find the teal to be a complement to the gray. Interesting. I've never heard of a complementary color to gray before. I think you mean sort of not necessarily complementary, but just a complement, sort of enhancing the gray. Okay, there you go, Diane. There you go. So that is the reason I chose the teal. The teal is the perfect complement to the orange in the indicator lights. And for those of you that have been following me for a long time know that I love to use complementary colors. And actually, blue and orange are my favorite complementary colors. So that is why I chose this particular teal color. I'm also going to use it in the windows here very lightly, because the reference photo actually, everything has a bluish, tealish tone in the windows. Partially due to sky reflection, but also because of window tinting. The window tint tends to be a cooler color, like blue. So you're seeing the light come through the tint. Just going to lightly add this to windows here, or to that gray there. I was going to add purple to the car as well, but I thought it might be a bit much. A bit much to go purple. And I don't have any yellow really, aside from a little bit of yellow in there. Just using solvent to smooth these pigments out for the last time. I'm going to use this teal throughout the transitions of the values in the paint. Probably use it a little bit in the rims as well for like reflection purposes, and the highlights, or the headlights, not highlights. Cars don't have cars don't have highlights, they have headlights. Some of the teal in the headlights as well. Okie dokie. Let's see here. Is my pencil sharp enough? Yeah, I think so. Anytime you do toning with colored pencils, you always want to have a very, very sharp pencil. Because when you do toning, your paper's already going to be covered pretty thoroughly. And so there's not a lot of space on the paper for the color to show up in the first place. So you have to have a sharp pencil for it to grab onto any remaining paper texture. And then also, you want to have the toning color just barely show up. And so with a really sharp pencil, you can use the pencil on the side, sort of gently apply the color. Anytime you do toning, you want to have as much control of the color showing up as possible. So you never press hard, never ever press hard, very light, minimal pressure, and let the color show up slowly. I don't even know, can you guys even see this color showing up? I can see it, and it looks fantastic. Um, but I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera. But I'm using this color in the transitions from the darker parts of the paint to the lighter part of the paint. This would be like maybe a pearlescent paint, like a teal pearl that's showing up in those transitions. Do some of it right here. I'm not going to add a lot, just enough to where I see it. A little bit in this transition here. I want some of it in the headlights. You can be a little bit bolder in the headlights, I think. I'm going to be. Right in here and right in the center. Now, if you use solvent to blend your toning stage out, you need to use dry brush. So dip your paintbrush in the solvent and then use a paper towel to wipe it completely dry. When you dry brush blend with solvent, when you are actually brushing the paper, it should not appear wet in any way, but it will blend. Right, let's go over here. Let's do a little bit of this color, and you can be a little bit more playful here, because this is a reflection of the world. This isn't the paint of the car. This is like the concrete the car is actually sitting on, and you can watch that section when we did this side. I talked about how this is like a bridge. There's some grass and stuff, and I just threw in some random colors. So you can be a little bit more bold in this area. I'm going to do the top up here. Anywhere you have really dark shadows, you can be a little bit more bold. There's not too many on the car, but here, this little loop, go a little bit bolder in there. And same thing with the rims. Just gonna put a little bit of this color in, not too much. You could actually do a lot of fun coloring in the rims if you wanted to. You could have 5 different toning colors. For the rims, I would stick just to the center line. Stick to the center line. Don't do like stuff down here or up here, because that's the way the metal reflects. It sort of has the a very the way that it reflects the world. It has the horizon line kind of built into it, and so keep your colors near that horizontal line with your toning. And let's do a little bit here. Some of the chrome elements, you're going to want to use this. If the color is meant to represent anything in the environment, this color, I'm not really toning it because it exists in the environment, but I want it to exist in the picture of this car. But if the car was sitting on grass, then I would use the grass color to try to help create that illusion that it's reflecting the environment that it's in. In this case, I'm just kind of throwing this color wherever I want because I do what I want. And I like this color a lot. And I want it to show up. Okie dokie. I think I'm just going to call this done. I'm not even going to bother blending it out with solvent. I don't think that it needs it. So I'm going to zoom out so you guys can see the picture the way that it should be viewed, like a normal person. And there you have it. There is the finished Jaguar. And that marks one more project done. So 2 projects finished this week. So I hope that you guys enjoyed doing the cars. The project we did before this was also a car, so we did 2 cars in a row. Cars are a very unique subject. They're a lot of fun. Cars are really, really great when you want to work on pencil control and accuracy, because all of the little shapes, all of the little shapes, all of the tight lines and corners and everything, it's tricky to do, but anybody can do it if you take your time. And cars kind of have a lot of those shapes. And so if you have a favorite car, try it out. Try to do one of your favorite cars. And yeah, so that's going to do it for this project. Like I said, because I finished it today, there will not be a live stream tomorrow. However, I will be back on Friday to do a live stream, and that will be painting with oil for the Evolve program. Anyways, thank you all so much for coming by and hanging out. I greatly appreciate all your questions and everything that you do, all of the support. So thank you for that. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a wonderful day tomorrow as well, since I won't see you. And I will see you all on Friday. Take care. Peace.